guys, welcome to part 2 to the dress tutorial. This is the dress that we made in part 1 in Marvelous Designer. I can actually show you the actual dress. There we go. And so now in part 2, we are going to be bringing it into Blender, rigging it to ToddleeDoo, baking it, and uploading it to SL. And then we will be sizing from the ToddleeDoo body to the BB body. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I work on Blender 2.79, so this tutorial is going to be in 2.79. And if you haven't already, then you will need uh, the ToddleeDoo dev kit. And then if you're sizing to any other body, then you'll need the dev kit that associates to those bodies. I prefer to rig on ToddleeDoo because Bit is amazing and she created rig helpers. And so those are my best friends. And so I prefer to rig on ToddleeDoo. And then, yeah, so and you'll also need Avastar. So if you do not have those two programs, then go ahead and Avastar for sure, because that's how I'm going to show you how to rig. But if you, I guess this would work for any body, but I do prefer to use the rig helper for ToddleeDoo, so that is what we are going to be using. Otherwise, you'll just have to weight paint the skirt. And we might have to do a little bit of weight painting, but because Bit does really, really well, then I rarely have to weight paint. So this is the rig helper for the flared dress. But we are going to go ahead and bring in our dress. Oh no, I need a cell drug. Okay, here we go. So we want to make sure that we're on a different layer. And then I'll just select the dress. And sometimes I like to rig first, sometimes I like to bake first. Today we are going to bake first, but we don't want to check to make sure that it fits the avatar. Good. And if you uploaded it properly, then you shouldn't have any issues with this portion. And so the way that we bake or the way that I bake, there's probably multiple different ways. This is just the way that's worked best for me. What we're going to do is we're going to go in edit mode and then switch to face select, or yeah, the face select, where you have the little faces. And then we will go into, oh my goodness, this one. There we go. And then push A to deselect. So in in part 1, we named each of the faces. This is where you're going to see those, and this is the UV maps. So I'm just going to select this. I'm going to select the collar because it's going to be on one UV map. And then I'm going to export UV. Aha, there it is. And we're just going to put it in here. So UV map. And export the UV, and then we're going to push new, and you do dress map, AO map, and now we've set up the AO. So we're going to, for this particular thing, you want to make sure that you have those selected. And we're going to deselect that, and then do the skirt, and we're going to select, and we're going to do the exact same thing, only skirt. Key map. And then we're going to do new. Okay, so sometimes it does that. It's totally fine. And me personally, I like to, well, we'll switch over to that later. We're done being in edit mode, So we'll switch over to object mode, and now we're going to put a modifier on. So this won't be on the actual SL upload, but while we bake it, then we want to subdivide the surfaces, and I like to change the view to 2. It makes it look all pretty. And then we will go in here. We want the ambient occlusion, environment lighting, and then change the gather to 25. And then we come in here. We want ambient occlusion, normalized, and the margin is up to you. It's is going to be how far the map goes away from the actual mesh portion. So I personally like to do 2, so that means it's going to expand 2 pixels out from the actual map. I don't know if that made any sense, but it's how far it actually extends out. And I found that 2 works best for me, and it's what I prefer to do. You can play around with it and see which works best for you and what's easier for you to texture. So then what I like to do is I like to come in here. So to get this menu, you just push N and then switch over to shadings, and I like to select that. So right now that tells me that I set it up properly because this thing is fully black and there's no portions left out. So we're gonna just go to front view or 1 on the number pad, go out of this, and then bake. And you can see it baking in here. Ta-da! So now it's done. And then we just kind of check it over. It looks good. And then the way to tell what it's going to look like in SL. Okay. All right, it's just a little bit of shadowing because it's ruffled. Okay, we're good. The way to tell how it's going to look in SL is you will just remove this. So you'll just close out of it. So that's roughly what it'll look like in SL. This bit will be more clean. But yeah, that's roughly what it'll look like. And then because I like how these turned out, there's not anything on here that I would say needs changed. They all look pretty good. So we're going to, oops, image, save as image, and it just brings it into here. I want this. Save. And then this one. Save as image. Script. All right. Now for the rigging. And for this part, then we just need whichever thing we're going to be rigging to. We're going to be using the flared dress rig helper, which is fantastic. And we're going to be in this one. So we're going to select everything, and the weight sources is we want, oh, sorry, my cat just stepped on my keyboard. The weight sources, we want the meshes, and then we want to make sure that the Pro Flared dress is selected. And then we will just bind to armature. And you have a rigged dress. Super easy. And to test the rig, oh, we are going to switch that. To test the rig, we just grab a hold of this, the armature, go into pose mode, and then switch this to rotate. So the collar looks good. And this is where you'll find either the rig was really good or not so great. So if it's clear up here before it starts to come out through it, then I would consider that a success, because most of the time when people have your avatar sit down, then they move both. So, and clear up like that. That's good. And then back. Good. So, and then we're gonna see this. It shouldn't move. Yeah, there we go. It shouldn't move this part. I usually don't have to check the knee, but because we did a lower and it went down below the knee, then I checked it. But yeah, looks good. So then what we do is we need to make it solid. There's a few different ways that you can do this, and that what that means is make it to where the underside looks not see-through. So the way that I do this is I just solidify it, and then I do the thickness 0.001, and it depends on how thick you want this. So if you're doing like a roughly chiffon, you might do it a little bit lower. If you're doing like a denim, it might be just a little bit thicker. You really can just mess around with it, and that looks good to me. So this to me would be like a cotton. Okay, now we are good to upload this dress into SecondLife. So we are going to have just the dress selected, and we're going to come over here, and we're going to export Collada Avastar, and then we want to do dress ToddleeDoo. Okay, and that little thing will pop up all the time. And now let me just get my SL screen over here so that we can test it. Okay. So this is my avatar. We're going to build, upload model. And sometimes it'll be right here and sometimes it won't. We're going to upload. Now it's going to show up weird right in here, but we're just going to do and then I like to do 1,110. For the hanging displays, then I just do 1,000, 10, 10. And then we're going to calculate weight. So it's going to be 2 land impact. And I like to attach it to spine. We're going to go ahead and detach that. There we go. Okay, so we can't really see what it looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to upload bulk. And because I'm not planning on selling this, I'm not going to upload the UV maps. It's not necessary. I include them in my full perm kits, but technically we only need these two for this. So we're going to upload both AO maps. And textures. Where's edit? There we go. And then I'm going to honestly that easy. And then we have a rigged, we'll go down over here. Now, usually when I'm creating, then I'm in my creator cabin over here. And it has my dance thing. And I usually, when I'm testing out a rig, then I will, oops. I'll just let it cycle through a few dances so I can make sure that it's not coming out anywhere on the body. Looks good. Nothing's coming through. There isn't any spot that we need to change. But yeah, mainly you want it to where if you have an AO on, then it's not going to be too crazy. It's not going to be coming out anywhere. There's not going to be any spots on the body where it's coming through or it's going in. Or sometimes when rigging on BB youth especially, then the back right here will do all kinds of weird things. So we want to make sure that it's not doing that. But overall, this looks really good. Okay. So we will just leave her there. Switch that. All right, so now that we know that this is a completed ToddleeDoo, then what I do is I will save this. So I'll save as, and I'll just do dress or whatever you name the thing. ToddleeDoo complete. That way I know that I don't need to come back to it. And then save as Blender. Okay, now we are going to size to BB. So I have the BB file. If you do not have BB, you want to size it to whatever. The mechanics are the same. I'm just going to size it to the toddler. Lula Beebs, same thing. Now, what we are going to do, and this one, you want the one with the toes. So there's different ones that don't have toes. See how there's no toes? I found that the rig is always way off on these ones, so I just do the one that has the toes. Super easy. And the way that I do it is I'm going to keep the same weights as the ToddleeDoo. So I'm going to upload, oh, dang. I forgot to do this. It's a good thing we saved it. So in order to do it to size when I'm doing a dress, then I will remove the solidify. And because we already saved it, I'm not worried. And then I'm going to save it as export Avastar. Only I'm going to do dress for sizing. So this is the mesh that when I size it to whatever body, I'm going to use this same mesh. Now we can get the baby body. Let's see. Going to import sizing. Oh, I want to move it though. So we're going to move it onto this one. Sorry. the reason why I got rid of that is because it's the body or the rig things that we don't need. So now we're going to rotate on the z-axis -90. So now it's facing the right direction, and we're going to bring the, oops, wrong one. We want this one. Okay, so I'm going to scale, so push S, and bring it to where the dress, and we want it to be just a little bit above the body. So I want to bring it down a little bit more, about like that. And then I like to do like the big editing when it's all together. So I'm going to do scale on the x-axis now and bring it just a little bit out, and then scale on the y-axis and bring it to where it's just a little bit out, and we are going to move it back a little bit and scale more on the y-axis till it's pretty much have all of the outside areas done. And then what I want to do is come over here to tools. We're going to go into sculpt mode, and I want to grab, and then I want it to be symmetric on the y-axis. So it's gonna, whatever I do to this side is gonna happen to this side. And oops, you don't want to be that dramatic. When this, so we want it to come away from the body about how much it was with the ToddleeDoo. And I'm gonna need to have it come up just a little bit. And then you want to really try and minimize the amount that you're actually maneuvering the mesh, because it will change the way that the textures look on it. So if you do a lot of maneuvering in one area, then the textures are either going to be really stretched or really squished. So I like to just keep it as neat as possible. And we're just going to maneuver this just a little bit. And I want it to come out back here. And one thing to remember is it doesn't have to be perfect, because ultimately you can create an alpha mask for this. And I like to make it to where I don't need to, but it is an option. So as long as it's not coming through, like when we test it, as long as it's not coming through on the main parts of the body, then we're good. Like around the edges is where you want to be more cautious. I do want to bring this up just a little bit. But yeah, that looks good to me. BB, usually right around the midsection, it goes through. So I usually end up having to create an alpha or just spend quite a bit of time uh, fixing it in here. I want it to just be a little bit more flared out than that. Yeah, and we can switch to wireframe, and oh, when I have the other thing selected, the body selected, we'll go to object mode, select the body. Okay, so it's because BB has such an exaggerated curve in the back, then usually around the butt area, then I have to come out quite a bit. It is pretty close up here though, so we'll come out a little bit more and out just a little bit more. But yeah, that looks good to me. So we're gonna switch over to solid. Yeah, that looks good. And then the biggest difference, so we're gonna rig it now, is we're gonna come down here and select all, and we're gonna keep, because we want to keep the weights that we had from the ToddleeDoo. Those are gonna transfer over to BB. And then we're gonna bind to armature, and it's gonna keep those weights. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna come over here, select the skeleton, and pose. And then I like to spend, yep, so that's about when it was coming through on the ToddleeDoo. And let's check, oops, arm, looks good. Now, when we get it inside of SL, yep, see, so this is gonna be a problem. But what I do with that is we are going to weight paint, and you see that area that's lit up? We're just going to delete it. Now it won't do that. That's something that I always have to do when sizing to BB. If it's something that comes up a little bit, then it just pulls weird inside of SL. But it's not a big deal. Sometimes if it's like a lower thing, then I won't need to do it, but it's always something that I check. So you just come bend the neck a little bit and it will tell you. Oh, we don't want to weight paint anymore. Do you want to test this? Yeah, so that looks good. Looks good. Yeah, overall I think this will look good. It'll be good. And then what we want to do is come over here into the modifier. So this is our ToddleeDoo, or not our ToddleeDoo, this is our BB, this is our ToddleeDoo. So we want to, before we upload to SL or save to upload, we want to get rid of this right here. So you just get rid of it. It doesn't change anything with the armature that we already have, but that's how we do it. And then we're going to add the solidify, and I just change it to the same thickness as I did with the ToddleeDoo. And now it's good to export. So we're going to export Avastar. And we're just going to change this. Now, usually with BB, I have to upload like 2 or 3 of them before I get it right. Sometimes it works just fine, but sometimes, especially with dresses, then they don't like to be very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything switched over with my, oh, come on, there we go, with SL. So give me just 1 second. Okay. Now I have got the BB avatar, and because So we're gonna get this uploaded and then I can show you. So we're gonna do dress Bebe Toddler and do the exact same thing. So 1,100, oops, 10. And then calculate weights and upload. And I'm going to attach to spine. And here it is. So as you see around the belly, this is always a spot, and then around here. So I usually will create an alpha for it, but that's completely up to you. If you want to go back into Blender and pull these out, we would need to pull this out up as well. So let's do that really fast because we don't want anything up here. Around here is fine because it's really, really easy to create an alpha for that. So, oops. We are going to sculpt and just pull this part out just a little bit. And I mean, if you want to, then you can pull this out, and then we want to pull this out some more. That out. I usually have to make it quite far away from the body for BB, both Bebe Toddler and Youth. But yeah, it's not far away from the body in SL though, so it looks normal. And then let's see, we'll just pull a little bit more. There we go. So now we're going to export. Oh, hang on. Gotta switch over to object mode. And we can export. And I'm just gonna put a 2, oops, at the end of here. All right, let's test it. And we're going to, oops. And let's skirt just so that we can see better. And then we will have it dance. And just do a double check. Okay, so it needs to come out more on the neck. Yeah, that's the only part that I'm seeing that needs to be edited. Otherwise, the rig looks good. So, oops, we'll come over here and sculpt this to come out. Yeah, usually I have to have them right about that far away. So I should have known that was going to be an issue. Oh, that's right. Object. I always always forget to switch to object mode before doing this part, but see if third time's the charm. But yeah, it's mainly just trial and error. Uh, Rarely do I have to upload the ToddleeDoo again. I usually end up having to upload BB and Youth and and the TweenyDoo. TweenyDoo, I have to upload quite a few of them. But yeah, it's just trial and error. We are going to edit this. Select face. Perfect. All right, there we have it. That's how you do a flared dress and size it to the BB body from ToddleeDoo for Second Life. Thank you so much for joining me for another tutorial. I promise these are going to be more frequent, and let me know if there's anything that you would like for me to do in the comments. Thank you.